During the pandemic, the value of classic cars rose significantly. In some cases, the values have settled somewhat, but like antiques, they'll always be generally trending upwards in value. I know there's a lot of people who have never bought a classic car before, but they're interested in buying one, as well as getting into working on an old car as a hobby. This video is intended to impart a little bit of my knowledge from doing this over the last 8 years or so. Now, I'm not talking about buying classics as an investment. If you're thinking about classic cars as something you can make money from, you're better off looking for another video, or in my view, looking elsewhere to invest your money. What I'm going to talk about is how you can affordably get started owning, driving and maintaining a classic car as a hobby. So, you're going to need a budget for buying, running and maintaining the vehicle, as well as money to spend on fuel, accommodation, tickets to events that you might want to attend with your classic, that kind of thing. But first you need to think about what a classic car means to you and what your motivations are for buying one. When many people here in the UK are asked about classic cars, they picture the quintessential British sports car, something like an MGB. But MGBs are now between 40 to 60 years old now, and you'll struggle to find a good surviving example for less than £5,000. And a decent, reliable, rust-free car could be well over 10 grand. You might find a rusty project for about 2k, but you'll need to put in a lot of work to get it back on the road. I don't want to put people off. There are a lot of classics out there that are affordable, but a lot of the cars that you think of as classics traditionally are out of reach of your average first-time hobbyist. But it's not all doom and gloom if your budget can't stretch to 5 figures. So the idea of a classic car is evolving all the time, and it means different things to different people. Ultimately, over time, new and more diverse set of vehicles are considered classics. Cars right up to the end of the 1990s now are considered by many as cars that are mostly just owned and driven by enthusiasts. And thinking back to vehicles like the Peugeot 205 and 306, the Fiat Coupe, Alfa 145, even more recent cars like the MGF, most of these actually seem quite a world away from modern vehicles. And I challenge anyone to step inside one of these and drive them and not feel that it's an experience that kind of takes you back in time, and one that would appeal to a car enthusiast. So if you want an affordable classic, the first thing I'd say to do is immerse yourself in the increasingly diverse world of classic cars. So buy some magazines, go to some shows, and have a look at what's out there. Ask people about cars that you're interested in, and just build up some knowledge of the options that are out there. Even if you know your cars and you're serious about buying a classic, this can be a useful experience. Whatever your idea of a classic is, and even if it's like mine, more centred around cars with no power assistance, no airbags, no fuel injection, there's options out there for you. So just to give you an idea of the diversity of classics that are out there, here are some examples of cars you can buy for less, and if you're really lucky, in some cases much less than £5,000. Number 1, Triumph Acclaim. It's a British-ish car with a lot of the Japanese influence in it. In fact, it's basically a Honda Ballade, but I won't go into that in too much detail. But it's a nice car, and it has that kind of classic sort of British car feel to it. It's just not a very common car that you see around. Number 2, Alfa 145. Really cool 90s sort of styling. It's a good car. Number 3, Saab 900 or 93 convertible. Again, a car that you see around an awful lot. Nowadays you don't, but still a good car in its own right. It's not a sports car, but you can have a lot of fun in a Saab convertible. So hey, in my mind, all these are classic cars. Even if your budget can't stretch to these, you can still find a slightly more modern car that you can sort of tinker with and enjoy. It might not get you into a classic car show, but you can still have fun with it, and then one day they will become accepted as classics too. So you'll need a budget for maintenance, and that will vary wildly depending on the car and the condition it's in, but it's fair to assume that this is going to be the bulk of your costs. You can check out my video about rust for an idea of the most common problem you encounter with classics in the UK and the cost to repair it. I'll put a link in the description. The nice thing about a 25-ish year old classic or older is that you start to qualify for cheaper running costs. So at around 25 to 30 years, most cars qualify for classic car insurance, and this can save you huge amounts of money as long as you're happy to limit the mileage you do in the car. Beyond this, once a car hits 40 years old, the vehicle can be reclassified as historic, which means that you don't need to pay vehicle excise duty, tax, or get an annual MOT. Now, regarding that last point, any decent classic car enthusiast will tell you it's important to still get the car either MOT'd or regularly checked anyway. But you don't have to do it, every year on the dot, which is, quite handy if you're juggling your finances or you're just busy with life in general. Fuel is a significant cost too, and there's not a lot you get to be able to do to limit that other than consider lighter cars with smaller engines and, make sure the car's well serviced as well. Now, these things can really help reduce your running costs and, the overall cost of having a classic, and it can also make for some pretty shrewd, just affordable motoring. I'm not recommending that you run a 30-year-old car on a daily basis or an older car, but you can certainly use a classic regularly, and it will probably do it a lot more good as well to get it out and use it regularly. Doing some of your own maintenance is pretty much essential when it comes to older cars. Any old car is going to need TLC, and the good thing about that is you get to gradually learn about the car itself and cars in general, and it will save you more and more money in the long run as you build up your knowledge. But you don't have to know everything straight away. There's a lot of classic friendly businesses out there that will keep you going, without breaking the bank. I think what's important is to have a proper conversation with anyone you're considering asking to work on your car and paying to work on your car. If you don't think they're being open or honest, or they don't seem just don't seem interested in the work, then just try someone else. So, in summary, you can find fun cars that will make nice, affordable classics for a few £1,000s, and as long as you're willing to consider a diverse range of vehicles as possible, you're much better off buying a good example of a left field car than a completely rotten MGB. Unless your thing is restorations that would typically take several years to complete, and that's fine if it is. But people need to accept that the traditional classics that often come to mind are now too expensive and in some cases just too troublesome for your average buyer. That doesn't mean that you can't get a lot of enjoyment out of the alternative vehicles that are on offer. Whether it's working on, improving, driving the car, take it to events, all that kind of thing, whatever appeals to you, you can get pretty much the same experience out of a much wider range of cars than you might think. And I personally think that the world of classic cars is changing fast, and with the cost of everything going up, people are changing their habits. And I think we're going to see the whole kind of landscape of classic cars change in a way. I think there's still going to be hobbyists out there who want to run a car on a budget. Even if you can afford a more expensive classic, I think a lot of people are going to start to think about, do I want to really cripple myself financially, or can I perhaps just buy something that's a little bit more affordable. You know, I can stick it in the garage. I don't have to worry about it so much if I take it out, you know, because it's not, you know, worth huge sums of money. And I think, yeah, I think there will always be a kind of market for cheaper classics and keeping cheaper cars on the road. And I think you just have to kind of look at old cars like you know, MGs and Triumphs and things, you know, the classic British sports car and thing, you know, and Land Rovers, all the rest of it. They're not really, they're the age of kind of vintage pre-post-war cars, you know, when I was younger now, you know, and those are cars that are very rarely actually driven on the road. You know, I mean, it's testament to some of these vehicles that they are still, you know, kind of out there, but increasingly we're going to see fewer of these. There's a lot of them out there, there's a lot of them that are still well maintained, but the numbers will dwindle a little bit, and I think those kind of what were previously affordable classics will be replaced by something new, and so the mainstay of what you're going to see at classic cars is actually going to change, and that's going to be really interesting to see. You know, it won't be a really rapid change, but things are moving fast, and as I say, you know, economically what's happening in the world is changing very rapidly now, so you know, that's going to have a knock-on effect whether people like it or not. So yeah, that's just a little parting thought I thought I'd leave you with. Let me know what you think. Stick a comment in the thing below, and yeah, I'll see you again another time soon.